Good evening, fam. Tonight, this is a quick video, but I'm going to talk about tackling large, overwhelming projects one bite at a time, or eating the elephant one bite at a time. And one thing I have is a whole bunch of rolling stock that I've never really adjusted the coupler heights and verified the coupler heights. So best way to do it, get a list of, start measuring your equipment, have a spreadsheet, and start checking which ones are okay, which ones need adjustment. I'll show you in a second what I'm going to do. Okay, this is my Athearn Genesis DD40X. So here's my coupler gauge, my KD coupler gauge. So one thing I was going to say before you check your coupler height, make sure you're doing it on an unpowered track, because this is metal and this will cause a short. Okay, here's my Athearn Genesis DD40X, and we're going to check the front coupler height, and it is right on the money. Now, let me turn it around and we'll check the rear coupler. One thing I was going to say about I don't like to do, I like the least I can handle my locos, the better, because whenever I handle them, it seems to be some sort of damage. Okay, now here is the back coupler, and I'd say that's close enough, because it kind of lifts up with the thing, so it might be just, yeah, that's close enough. Does it pass the Daniel Cortopassi test? I don't know. I think it does. So anyway, there you go. Now, here's an example, of a spreadsheet that you can use to track all of your rolling stock. Okay, I'm sure most of you are pretty proficient with spreadsheets. I'm just going to create a Google Doc spreadsheet. We're going to call this rolling stock roster. Rolling stock DD40X, number is 6927. Front coupler, we're going to just put okay. Back coupler, okay. And there you go. Oops, didn't get that right. Pacific. Okay. So you see, eat the elephant one bite at a time. So I'm going to look at a few more of my locos, but yeah, just start somewhere. Do a couple of cars, say, okay, I'm going to check these 3 cars, and then I'm going to keep them on the spreadsheet, and then I'm going to put aside some time to start adjusting couplers. One thing I wanted to encourage you all to do is go visit Daniel Cortopassi's channel. He does a lot of great rolling stock reviews, and one of the things he's very particular on is coupler height, and he compares it with the KD coupler gauge. And one thing I enjoy about his coupler height review tests is if it's off, the coupler's like low or high or something, there's just this hint of disappointment in his voice, and I'm like,
the coupler on the B end is high, so I'm taking 5 points.
Yeah, get him, Dan. Get him, show him where it needs to be. And so I always enjoy that. One thing I wanted to mention also is, here's the KD coupler height gauge. And I've been a quality assurance professional for many years, and I've worked in manufacturing. And one thing with manufacturing is to have calibrated equipment, standards that meet specifications. And so just the QA engineer in me got curious. So I decided to review the NMRA coupler height spec. There is a tolerance. I'm not going to show it. And then I also measured to determine if the gauge is within spec. It's in spec, so nothing to worry about. One thing interesting though is this. It doesn't matter if it's. Think about it. It doesn't matter if it's in spec or not. This is your de facto standard for your layout. So if all your cars need to meet this for your layout. So if you own one, I encourage you to get one. It's going to be the de facto standard for your layout, whether it's in tolerance or not, but it is. Now, just a real quick side manufacturing note. This is a cast part, So over time, what they do is they have a mold, a cast mold. It's kind of like what Tesla does with their giga presses. What they do is they have a tool, and they probably have about 10 different molds in that one tool of the coupler height gauge. So what happens is they do a shot, and what that means is the molten metal is injected into the tool, and then it forms the coupler gauges, and then they open it up. It's probably 10, five in a row, 5 in another row, and they all inject out. Now, one thing over time is those tools begin to wear out, and I'll give you an example. Many of you may remember the Athern blue box kits, and the MDC Roundhouse, which is now owned by Athern Horizon. And you would get the kits, and there'd always be what was called flash, a little bit of extra thin plastic on the edge of a box car, flat car, whatever. And all you do would you take your X-Acto knife and cut it off. That was just kind of standard. People were used to seeing the flash. Well, what that flash was the result of a tool that has worn out over time. The more it injected plastic or molten metal, whatever it is you're putting in that tool, it begins to wear out over time. And that's why you got flash. Now, as far as the KD gauge is concerned, they could be using the same tool they had 30 years ago. Dimensionally, over 10, 20, 30 years, there might be a slight shift, but not anything that would throw it out of spec. And again, whatever spec it is in at, it's your de facto spec for your layout. So you have one of these, you're going to measure all your rolling stock to your gauge. So it doesn't matter where it is, as long as it's yours. Now, if you have a club, if you're part of a club, you probably want to have a de facto standard for the club, a gauge that everyone in the club has access to, which is probably going to be identical to mine, whether it was made 20 years ago or it was made last week. But think about that. Each club should have their own gauge as kind of the de facto for the club layout. So anyway, just want to share a little bit about the KD coupler height gauge. One thing I did do is I reached out to Dan Cortopassi, and I asked him if he would be, open to making a coupler height repair video, because each one of his rolling stock reviews, when he does his coupler height test or review, is he'll show you how to correct it. And I found that to be a wealth of knowledge. He showed it how to correct it for box cars, rolling stock, locomotives. And it's very thorough, and it's very well documented the way he does it.
Like it should.
So
the A-end coupler came out at the right height, but the B-end coupler is still slightly high. I'll file the truck bolster a little to lower the car on the B-end. That did the trick. Now the car is ready for service.
So I hope he gets my message, and he says, yeah, I'll do that. I'll put together a compilation of all my coupler height repairs. So again, I encourage you to watch Daniel Cortopassi's his YouTube page, because there is a lot of good information about coupler height repairs and adjustments. I forgot one thing. I forgot to say goodnight. Everybody have a great weekend, a great week, and a great weekend. I'll talk to you guys later.